Good morning, all of you. My name is Dr. Jasmine Walia, and we are going to be starting our science section today. So, when did your batch start? 16th of last month. Acha, okay, I get it. 1 week ago. Yeah, that was actually the number I was looking at. Okay. And which all subjects are you studying right now? 1 week ago वाले क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? Modern and history. अच्छा ठीक है. So we are starting the science section. I'll first give you an idea as to how we are dividing this. So we will have 3 sections which will cover the science part overall. First is the basic classes, basic science, in which we are going to cover the fundamental concepts of biology. This is the most prominent part when it comes to the kind of questions which are going to be asked in the exam. So we have a special dedicated module for this. We'll have around 6 to 7 classes to cover the basic concepts here. Then you will have the main module, science and technology. And you will also have separate classes to cover the current affairs of this part. The current affairs classes will start a little later, say somewhere after June. There you will have subject-wise coverage of all the portions, including science and technology. And today we are here to start the basic science biology portion. So we will be taking basic concepts in biology starting today. Are you familiar with UPSC's syllabus? Yes. The answer is always supposed to be yes to this, okay? If not, you're supposed to be very thoroughly familiar with it. Every part, every point, every full stop, every comma of the syllabus should be learned by you. That's the very first step for sitting in the exam. Because you will be reading a lot of things and you should be able to keep correlating that, okay, where in the syllabus is this placed, which part of the syllabus I'm covering while reading it. So, if I tell you about biology, we have the preliminary exam, and in that you have General Studies paper 1, in which there is a portion which says General Science. Now, in this general science, again, the questions which are being asked, there are 2 areas very prominent here. One is health and one is genetics. And because of this, the questions mainly are from biology portion only. This is what we'll be covering in biology portion. So, for the mains part, you have General Studies paper 3. And in this, there's this long elaborate line of the syllabus which says aspects of different technology, out of which one of the technologies is biotechnology. So we are dealing with both these portions, and accordingly, out of our 7 classes, we'll be switching. Not all portions here are going to be important for the mains exam. So what we're going to do is, you're getting assignment questions every day, right? So here you will be getting assignment questions selectively, not in all classes. The classes where we are predominantly focusing on the prelims part, we won't give you an assignment question. But when you have a mains oriented portion, there you're going to get an assignment question. Like today's class is mainly prelims oriented, so no mains question today. If I tell you a little bit more about the prelims exam, The weightage of biology in the previous years has been such. 2023, there were 3 questions. Then 2022, 5 questions. उससे पहले 5 questions again. Then 4, 5. 18 में we had 2 questions. 17, 16, 1 question each. Of course, with UPSC, that fluctuation in the number of questions is always expected. But the importance of this portion and the kind of news around it is such that we'll expect that at least 1 or 2 questions should definitely be there, right? Current trends have been going towards 5 questions because again, a lot of development and a lot of new things are coming, like vaccines and all of that. So we can aim somewhere between 1 to 5 questions. Now, in this number is going to be very important for you to understand how your preparation towards the subject is supposed to be. Talking about the mains exam, mains mein there is 1 question. Mains pattern has been more or less stable. So every year UPSC has asked 1 mains question from this section in paper 3. Last year was a slight drift. They asked 2 questions, but both of them were connected to different topics. So that is what we still expect to continue in future also. So accordingly, when you think of how you are going to prepare, you have to think about the fact that what kind of questions are asked. It's very important that we approach different subjects based on the demand of that subject. Let me give you an example of the question which UPSC is asking. Like in the prelims exam, the questions which they ask are very, very conceptual. They really want you to understand the things. Like there is this question which they asked, which is talking about a new vaccine, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. And the UPSC questions are designed in a way that there are multiple statements. 1, 2, 3. The first statement was about the vaccine. Second was about how the disease works. And the third statement was about another idea of drug resistance. Now, in this, how this question was framed, if we go into that, this is a 2020 question. And this vaccine got approval in that same year. So it got approval, it was ready, then it went to WHO, that it cleared. Then in India again, when the budget was released, this is an indigenous vaccine made in India. Then again, the government specified that, okay, we are going to spend this much money on this particular vaccine. So this was a source of constant news. Again and again, it was a part of the news. That means a part of your current affairs. But they did not ask any of these facts. कि vaccine किसने बनाया, कहाँ बनाया, WHO क्या बोल रहा है. They want to go into the basic fundamentals of how this is going to work. So for us, if we plan our approach, we need to know what's going on around in the current affairs, but we need to do that with a lot of conceptual clarity. We need to understand the concept behind it. And that is how we will approach this. Because of the technical nature of this uh, area and lack of familiarity for most of us, or not familiarity, everybody has studied it till class 10th, but again, a forgotten aspect. So we are going to be focusing on these classes dedicatedly so that the concepts which come in the current affairs, that would be more clear to us. The mains question, however, they are more on the application part, less on the science concept. Like if there is a vaccine like this, they'll ask what is the use of it. Okay. Or if there is any new technology, suppose stem cell therapy is there, they'll ask what is the application of it. So application, uses, advantages, such portions are predominantly going to be asked. And the mains question, they have been easier to understand, broader questions in which people can write easily. Like they asked how technology will increase farmers' income. Okay. If I give this question to all of you today, you all will be able to write something. Technology and agriculture, right? We understand these ideas. But the more we prepare, the better our examples will become. The more specific our examples will become, right? That's the whole idea of preparing here. It gives you a lot of scope when questions are application oriented. But again, current affairs preparation and understanding of the concepts here, they are going to be helping us write better answers. And in a competitive exams, at the end of the day, that is the story. That how you prepare is supposed to be better than the next person. You're not really aiming for any particular range of marks, but you just want to be better than everybody else preparing in the country. And such sections really provide you the edge. There are portions of our syllabus which are understood easily by most people, right? Or are more comprehensive, easily you can make out where you have to study from, like maybe, polity or modern Indian history also, for that matter. That modern Indian history, everybody, it makes sense to everybody at some level, right? Everybody knows about what happened with the independence of India. So in such sections, the scope of getting an edge is a little challenging, because everybody who's preparing well is almost working around the same area. But such areas like science, which are to a great dislike for most people, and preparing an area like this can really fetch you those extra 3-4 marks, which ultimately become the whole game changer, especially when it comes to the prelims exam. If you prepare well, it's not going to be like preparing well, that means preparing well decently for 1 year. For most aspirants, what we keep looking at is that their gap is from the cutoff. The gap from the cutoff, if they clear or not clear, the gap is hardly 4-5 marks, not more than that. ऐसा नहीं है कि कट ऑफ 90 है, आपने एक साल अच्छे से प्रिपेयर किया तो आपके 30 मार्क्स आएंगे. इस तरह की वेरिएशन नहीं होती. अगर 90 है, आपके 85 होंगे, 84 होंगे, ज्यादा से ज्यादा इतना ही गैप बनता है. आपके नहीं, मतलब it's a general statement, right? So this is an opportunity to prepare these subjects well, so that advantage you can have for yourself. And preparing well का इसमें इस section में simple strategy यही है कि understanding से preparation करनी है. Because of the nature of this subject, we don't have any printed material for this. Okay, you don't need any printed material, जिस तरह के questions आ रहे हैं. 15 years ago, and even now in a lot of state services and other exams, this portion is very prominently asked and very factually asked. जैसे 20 questions पूछते हैं mostly अभी भी सभी exams में from biology. But the questions will be names of parts of the brain, parts of the kidneys, bones, all of that. UPSC has not been asking these questions the last 20 years. So their idea is to make sure people understand the concept behind things. So for that kind of a preparation, if I have to suggest you a source to read, that source will be your NCERT books. NCERT books in their latest edition are relevant. आपके पास कोई पुराना edition है तो भी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, because UPSC has not changed much when it comes to science. सिर्फ they've added or deleted chapters, that's it. Okay, so more or less it's going to be the same thing. Within NCERTs, if I have to specify, class 6 to 8 NCERTs, you all must read, irrespective of your background. This is a very important thing here. You might be a PhD in zoology, still you must read 6 to 8 ka NCERT completely, because sometimes reading advanced studies makes us lose touch with the very basic facts. So one reading of this is a must. you must go through this. They are simple books. They are written for a foundational level, and they will give you a very, very good insight into different ideas. जो class 9th and 10th है, again you have science books. Here all chapters might not be useful, so this can be read selectively. The chapters which are more important, like you have the chapter on genetics, you have a chapter on cell, so those chapters can be read. Otherwise everything here, all the chapters should not really be useful, as the case of 6 to 8. Then from class 11th and 12th, biology books. These are very technical, very advanced books. We really don't need everything here. This is not written for us. This is not written for the UPSC exam. This is written for people who are going to sit in pre-medical entrance exams. So the way we can use this is, if we are looking specifically for a topic, they can act as reference material when you are searching something. Suppose you want to search, there is some report on hormones, okay, and you want to look up hormones. You can open this book and look up the hormones. Or there is a report that says that China has cloned a wolf. Okay, China recently cloned a wolf. Now you want to read about cloning, then you can go back to this book and read. Okay. What I'm going to do in every class is, at the end of every class, I'm going to tell you a few chapters from these NCERT books. 1 chapter, 2 chapter, depending on the topic. Now you can read those NCERT topics according to the class, or if you have read it already or you want to read it on your own, then you can start with class 6th, whatever works for you. I'll be covering all these books depending on the topics, how we are going to be studying them. The edition I am referring to is the latest edition of NCERT, the edition which is available on the website. So NCERT ki website mein jaake you can download these books for free also, if you're comfortable reading in the digital medium. And if you want to buy books, then you can go and buy the latest edition books. Or purani bhi koi hai, then no problem, just read them. Chapters आगे पीछे होंगे, but the same chapters are there. ठीक है. इसके अलावा there is not much use of reading any particular book. Think of the number of questions you are dealing with, and I'll keep showing you questions also. In every class, we are going to be taking 1 or 2 previous year UPSC questions, okay, related to the topic which we are doing. We'll be discussing those questions in the class. So we'll be understanding how we are supposed to attempt these questions. And the other thing is that we'll also understand ki the content which we are reading, how is that going to be related to actually being asked in questions. The assignment questions also which we give you, they are going to be derived or exactly the UPSC previous year questions only, just to stay a little bit in line with what is happening in the exam and what you are reading. So when you look at more questions, you'll understand that because of its more conceptual and less factual nature, books don't help. And the parts of books, of course, will be relevant and useful, but the idea is that books are going to be a very bulky additional material which you will add, because somebody who's writing a book, that book will at least be 300 pages plus, right? Otherwise nobody is going to publish, right? Nobody. D can go and say कि ये 60 pages का book छाप दो, कोई नहीं छापेगा, ठीक है? तो उसको book बनाना था, तो book बन गया है. All of that might not be relevant to us. So in that case, picking a book doesn't help much. Your approach can be this, that your further elaboration into this will come through current affairs. See, the classes here are also going to be more focused on concept. It's not going to be very factual. And because we don't deal with a lot of mains related content, we'll not be having a lot of elaborate note making or dictation and all of that, because we don't need that. We'll be using a lot of diagrams, we'll be using a lot of flow charts, definitions also in the beginning, but otherwise we'll focus more on writing in point format to understand the themes. Okay, that's the requirement of this subject. But जो कुछ याद करना है आपको, जो भी fact मिलेंगे, they're going to come from current affairs. So the learning you will do, the ratta you will do from the current affairs. Here our approach is to give you some basic concepts ताकि current affairs समझ आते रहे. That's the idea. I want to specify a little bit more about current affairs and how you can prepare them. Have you had your class on how to read the newspaper? Okay, so you already have some idea. I want to just differentiate a little bit for the science portion, because there are dedicated science pages also in the newspaper. So which articles to pick, which not to pick, that problem is there. And for new aspirants, the biggest problem is, what if I miss out, right? ऐसा लगता रहता है ये कुछ छूट जाएगा, फिर कैसे यूपीएससी मुझे आईएएस ऑफिसर बनाएगी if I don't read this article, right? So how to decide that which articles I have to read. Newspaper, of course, is going to be the main source of your current affairs, and hopefully you are reading the newspaper every day. In this newspaper, all those articles which come on the science page dedicatedly, they are more relevant to people who have an interest in science, okay, or who are just curious, okay, what kind of research is happening in which part of the world. All of that might not be very relevant to us from the purpose of the exam, right? So what you can do is, if you really think there's an article which is relevant, you can read it. Again, that's a discretionary thing, but otherwise just reading the headline and understanding what it is talking about. Like suppose there's a article talking about genome sequencing. Okay, this is a concept we'll talk about in genetics, right? So even if you don't know कि हाँ Bangalore में Indian Institute of Science में क्या research चल रही है, right? That again, because most of those research, it's not still conclusive, it's some study which is going on, but you should understand what is genome sequencing. If you can do that, that's good enough, right? Or if you feel that's also a little tedious, then one very short or simplified version of this is, focus on things which come on the editorial page and not on the science page. You will find a lot of science related news in your editorials. Okay, so when something comes in an editorial, you should automatically understand that now this is not just limited to science interest, this is something which is of national importance. This is something which is of national discussion. So this I must read. So if that selection, because you know anything you read in science and understanding that will also take a lot of effort. So at least editorials you must read. Rest of it, if you find something relevant, please read. Otherwise, you can very comfortably leave that, because you are also going to study a note format of the newspaper or the current affairs, which is a magazine. So along with the newspaper, which helps you understand different issues which are going on, you are supposed to read one current affairs magazine. And this current affairs magazine compiles everything. So that fear of missing out, that can actually be covered by the magazine. Because people who are making the magazine, they are referring to 5 sources. आप तो एक newspaper पढ़ रहे हो, वो 5 पढ़ रहे हैं. Then they are referring to different websites and what all news articles are coming there. And then they are compiling everything with giving you a proper background and explanation and what aspects are important for the UPSC exam. So वो आपको पढ़ना ही पढ़ना है. So अगर कुछ newspaper में से छूट भी रहा है, it's going to get covered here, right? So you will not be missing out. This is going to be the main base of your question, the current affairs part. Question इसी में से आएगा, but again question के बीच पीछे का जो understanding है, the concept है, that you need to work upon. So your approach here has to be that I should know current developments in science, but I have to know them with understanding. And that is what UPSC is expecting also. That's what the syllabus has mentioned, that you need to have a general idea of science. Like for science, they mentioned class 10th level, but there should be a very good hold on the concepts. And as we go through more questions, you will have a little bit more understanding of this. So you have to make sure कि आपको समझ आ रहा है. आप न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ रहे हो, आप करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ रहे हो, समझना, the concept clarity is very important in this to be able to solve questions and get those extra marks. That is the simplified approach. I will add a few other reference sources also as we go along different topics, but base yahi hai. Aap NCERTs padhoge, you will go through these classes. The classes here again, the 7 classes which we will have, the classes are not meant to be technically perfect. The classes are not meant to make you experts of biology. You don't have to be. You are going to become a civil servant. That's your approach. That's your goal. So we will be focusing on those areas which make more sense for the exam. Okay. The emphasis on different things can be disproportionate also. बिकॉज जो चीज ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है हम उस पर ज्यादा फोकस कर रहे हैं, जो कम इंपॉर्टेंट है उस पर कम फोकस कर रहे हैं. We are not really aiming to be, technical biology perfection experts. So we'll try and simplify it as far as possible. But in this also, remember that the module has already been very, very, very finely curated. इसमें अब आपकी editing नहीं हो सकती है. You cannot edit further from the class. The class is already very edited. आपको तो इसमें add करना है और बहुत कुछ add करना है continuously till you clear the exam from the current affairs. So classes, NCERTs, current affairs. That's the approach here. And of course, multiple revisions of all of that would be needed till the time you sit for the exam. ठीक है? Ma'am, do we need to purchase or online reading is fine? This is on you. Again, digital versus hard copy is, I think, a very personal choice, right? आपको online पढ़ने में आप comfortable हो, आपको उसमें it works well for you, please do that. But if you are that person जिसको paper का feel चाहिए, book की खुशबू चाहिए, then you can buy it, right? So again, this is a very personal thing. ठीक है? Okay. So did you see the result? Right? आपने तो पेपर नहीं दिया, फिर भी थोड़ी सी टेंशन तो हुई होगी कि नहीं? Okay. So see now from the result, further, just an additional thing, because we are going to get a lot of toppers now. Okay. A lot of people come out with their strategies, and that can be something which is very, very helpful. But again, not everything works for everyone. ठीक है? So whatever you listen to or whoever you follow, just remember this one thing, that you have to find your approach. Everybody's learning ability, everybody's skill development, everybody's level from where they are starting, that's very different, right? So accordingly, fine tune your strategy, listen to different people, you get a lot of good ideas which make sense to you, right? But again, you will have to find over a period of time, customize and see what works for you. One thing which I personally feel is very helpful from the toppers is their copies. The mains copies which are released, like Vision IAS ke website pe bhi, you'll have a lot of mains copies of toppers who have written tests here in Vision IAS. They are going to be available for, you can download and see them. That pattern of how different people are writing answers, what is the presentation style which they are using, how they are dividing their answer, what is the word limit which they are using, handwriting, underline, all of that. That gives you brilliant ideas. So that is one thing which I feel everyone must do, especially in the beginning when you are still figuring out what is your style of answer writing, right? Abhi to as you've started writing answers, or as you will start writing answer, whichever category you belong to, So you really don't know how to put that whole thing across. So आपको कुछ आपने पढ़ा है क्लास में, एक क्वेश्चन है, and you're just writing everything you know about that in that particular sheet. अब इसको evolve करना है कुछ better structured format में. एंड उसके आइडियाज बेस्ट मिलते हैं टॉपर्स कॉपी से, बिकॉज दैट्स अ पैटर्न विद समबडी इज राइटिंग, एंड 3-4 लोगों के देख लोगे आपको वेरिएशन भी मिल जाएगा. लुक फॉर आंसर्स इन डिफरेंट सब्जेक्ट्स. हिस्ट्री में कैसा लिख रहा है, साइंस में कैसा लिख रहा है, इकोनॉमिक्स में कैसे लिख रहे हैं, एंड दैट विल गिव यू वेरी गुड आइडियाज. सो दैट्स समथिंग विच यू मस्ट लर्न फ्रॉम. ठीक है, ओके. Now let me give you an idea of the topics which we are going to be covering in biology. Then if you have any questions before we start, we can take that. So we are starting with a little bit of a non-biology, more generic topic, because I don't want to scare you in the first class. That starts from the second class. Scaring part. Okay. First topic is food and nutrition. Then we'll go to a more technical side of biology, cell biology. We'll talk about different organisms and their structures. Then we come to health and diseases. After that, different organ systems of the body. And then the last topic is genetics and biotechnology. So this is the part which we intend to cover in our classes here. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Okay. Okay. So see, with living sciences, the question is that when we have a question, sometimes we think that this might be a possibility, but it might be an exception. And living science में exceptions are always there. जैसे एक बहुत simple statement I'll tell you, like we'll talk about genetic material. उसमें we have DNA and RNA. And RNA is always a single strand, a single chain. Right? So if there's a statement which says RNA is single stranded, right? Or RNA is always single stranded. So will that be correct? No. There is a possibility कि इसमें exception हो, like you put it. So the idea of how we identified exceptions would definitely be with more thorough and more clear reading. When you read more topics, you will come across an exceptional example of an RNA also. If not, of course, there is never going to be a possibility that you will know everything in the exam. ठीक है, ऐसा कभी नहीं होगा. आप जितना मर्जी तैयारी करो, if there are 100 questions with 4 options each, so 400 points में से आपको, मतलब I'll say with surety you will know maximum 40% of that. ठीक है, 40% भी ज्यादा है, उससे कम ही होगा. जिसको बोलते हैं ना बिल्कुल श्योर, ये पक्का पता है, राइट. बाकी चीजों में अप्रोक्सीमेशन करने के प्रैक्टिकल तरीके हैं. ऑप्शंस हेल्प्स. मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस का एडवांटेज यही है कि द आंसर इज इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. ओके, सो इन अ लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस दैट ऑप्शन का कॉम्बिनेशन विल बी हेल्पफुल. And if you have not read it, then there is no way of magically knowing the exception also. ठीक है ना. उसमें what we think of is that how close are we getting to an answer. Suppose आपके options हैं, multiple options हैं, and you are finally stuck with 2 options. ठीक है, एक आपको ये सही लग रहा है बट मे बी ये सही नहीं है, और दूसरा ऑप्शन ये है. सो व्हाट वी थिंक ऑफ इज, here the overall paper will make more sense. कि आपको ओवरऑल क्वेश्चंस कितने आप कर चुके हो, देयर यू गेट टू डिसाइड व्हेन यू आर नॉट श्योर. सपोज आपको क्वेश्चंस आपने अभी 30 किए 100 में से, तो आपको पता है ये क्वेश्चन मार्क करना पड़ेगा, और आप मार्क करोगे फिर भी 50% चांस है कि सही होगा, राइट. बट अगर आपने क्वेश्चन ऑलरेडी 90 किए हुए, देन यू लीव अ क्वेश्चन लाइक दिस. These strategies and all these ideas of actually solving questions where we are not sure or where we have not read about something, and obviously it could be something else. One thing is, of course, practice helps in how you decide that. The second thing is, it also will depend on what is the overall state of your paper and how you go through it or you leave it. When you're not sure, the option of leaving the question is always there, right? और गलत होगा ही होगा, राइट. आप कितने भी क्वेश्चंस करोगे, 15 या 20 क्वेश्चन गलत होंगे ही होंगे. वो भी कुछ ऐसा नहीं है दैट आप पहले से सोच के जाओ कि नहीं कोई क्वेश्चन गलत नहीं करना है. लॉट ऑफ पीपल हैव दिस फियर ऑफ नेगेटिव क्वेश्चंस, बट अल्टीमेटली व्हाट हैपेंस इज कि उस वजह से अटेम्प्ट ही इतना कम हो जाता है. अगर आपने 30 क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट किए तो 60 मार्क्स आएंगे, राइट. अगर आप 90 क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट करो, उसमें से 20 गलत भी हो जाए, स्टिल यू आर, कैलकुलेट कर लेना, स्टिल यू विल बी स्कोरिंग मोर देन दिस, राइट. कितने मार्क्स बनेंगे 70 से, तो 140, और 20 के माइनस करो 1/3, जितना भी है इससे ज्यादा बनेगा, ठीक है. या current affairs magazine, you're getting current affairs magazines, right? So anyone monthly current affairs magazines. कहाँ गया भाई? Chapters you mentioned are already present in NCERT, then why? Why to read them again? मतलब NCERT आपने लिखा है? अरे okay, I don't know. Okay. My middle class was I want to skip NCERT for bio since it's too bulky for me. कैसे? कैसे bulky? 6 की NCERT देखी है आपने? कितनी छोटी है वो, right? And if you already decided you want to skip, that's what I was trying to tell on the first day कि भाई यहीं पे तो edge लेना है, यहीं पे तो extra marks लगे हैं. पॉलिटी तो सब पढ़ने वाले हैं, हिस्ट्री भी सब पढ़ने वाले हैं, ज्योग्राफी भी सब पढ़ने वाले हैं, इकोनॉमिक्स भी पढ़ने वाले हैं. अब एक अमित से तो आप सब लोग जो एनसीईआरटी पढ़ोगे वो आगे निकल जाओगे, ठीक है ना. दैट्स द होल गेम, कि अगर आप थोड़ी सी मेहनत करके 4 नंबर ज्यादा ले सकते हो, एंड देर इज नो वे दैट यू कैन गेट रिड ऑफ इट. आपको करंट अफेयर्स में वो सब चीजें पढ़नी ही है जो एनसीईआरटी में है. इट्स जस्ट दैट इट विल मेक योर जॉब ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट अ लिटिल बेटर, राइट. एंड इफ यू आर एमिंग फॉर 25 अटेम्प्ट, तो अभी तो 24 का प्रीलिम्स नहीं हुआ है, यू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम. करोगे क्या आप, राइट? अगर एनसीईआरटीज भी नहीं पढ़ी, एंड आई एम बीइंग सो लिबरल, आई एम सेइंग एटलीस्ट 1 रीडिंग, दैट मीन्स 1 इज ऑल्सो फाइन. 1 गुड रीडिंग, jotting down whatever is extra, whatever is relevant from that, putting out examples, right? So that is what is needed. वो करना ही पड़ेगा. अच्छा, अमित ने अभी टोन चेंज कर लिया. नहीं मैम, 11th and 12th. 11th and 12th you can leave, Amit. It's not going to be a problem. Please don't read 11th and 12th NCERTs. समझ आना वैसे भी it's going to be very difficult. As far as Ayush questions are there. So Ayush is saying, Ayush, if you're asking me why I want to mention chapters is because topic wise. जैसे आज मैं nutrition पढ़ाऊंगी तो मैं food का chapter बता दूंगी एक, ठीक है. That's the only thing. I know the chapters are mentioned. If that's the thing you are asking कि सारे chapter NCERT में या आप क्या उसमें बता रहे हो special, right? If that is the question, then the answer to that is कि I will tell selective chapters linked to topics. तो आपने वो topic पढ़ा, घर जाके आप chapter पढ़ लोगे, थोड़ा सा easy हो जाएगा. नहीं मानना कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं है, ठीक है? चलिए, यस देयर आर लार्ज नंबर ऑफ फैक्ट्स, और बायोलॉजी है, नाम भी ऐसे खतरनाक खतरनाक आएंगे, हेलमिंथिक डिजीजेस याद करने पड़ेंगे, ठीक है? द आइडिया ऑफ हाउ टू रिमेम्बर facts or terms which are, complex, the idea is repetition. That's the only thing. There's no other magic rule for it, right? That's why we are keeping things very, very limited, right? जहाँ पे simplified word से चल जाएगा, simplified बिना fact के चल जाएगा, मैं खुद ही वैसे चला दूँ. But जो कुछ याद करना है, जो कुछ है, जो कुछ term आ रही है, वो याद करनी पड़ेंगी. What helps is multiple readings, and that's the biggest thing. आप जितने टॉपर्स को सुनोगे, one thing which all of them will agree on is the idea of revision. That's more important than expanding your sources, and that ideally should be the strategy. You keep your sources minimum, but you keep revising all those sources again and again, and that's what gives you confidence. And a lot of this game is of confidence. जब C और A में से choose करना होता है ना, तो अगर अच्छे से पढ़ा हो, that's when you can pick an option with surety, and that is the idea. क्या बार बार पढ़ो, याद हो जाएगा. Everything before you sit for your exam has to be read at least 4 times. ये minimum है, इसको जितना मर्जी expand कर लो, पर 4 बार पढ़ना पड़ेगा कम से कम, ठीक है? याद हो जाता है उतनी बार में. Okay. So we're going to talk about food. Everybody knows about food. We're going to talk about nutrition. So the first word which we have here is nutrients. We keep talking about nutrients present, nutrients in our food. Can you tell me what are the nutrients? What do they do? How do we get them? Anything. Anything about nutrients or this word? What does this word tell you? Really sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah. Can you come again? Okay. So they are important for certain essential processes taking place in our body, like energy. And carbohydrate is one nutrient she has told, right? Anything else? Fats, vitamins, minerals, okay? Proteins. What do they do? Anything else other than providing you energy? Growth. Okay, growth and development. Grow, reproduce, survive, provide energy. Okay. See, basically everything in our body is happening because of nutrients. They're going to help us in our growth, development of different parts of the body. If you are injured, repair of that injury. If you are sick, healing from that sickness, recovering from that sickness, energy, everything in our body is ultimately dependent on the nutrients which we are getting, and we are getting these nutrients from our food. Okay, please write one line about nutrients. Nutrients are present in our food. Nutrients are present in our food. They are essential to life. They are essential to life and health of a person. Providing it with energy and acting as acting as building blocks for repair and growth. Building blocks for repair and growth. Now, when we talk about nutrients, we are going to divide them into two parts. One we are calling macronutrients, and the second category we are calling micronutrients. You understand these terms, macro and micro? What is macro? Macro is large, right? Micro accordingly is small. This large and small is in the sense of the quantity. Okay, how much amount of a nutrient you need, that decides these two categories. So macronutrients are your proteins, carbohydrates and fats, which you need more, which you need in larger amount, and micronutrients are vitamins and minerals which you need in lesser amount. This does not mean their significance is less or more. They are both important, equally important. If they are not available, there are going to be a lot of problems in the body, but the variation is in the amount. In how much amount do we need them? That is what is variable. Please write macronutrients. Macronutrients. They are needed by the body. They are needed by the body in large amounts. They are needed by the body in large amounts. And form the major part of our diet. And form the major part of our diet. Carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Then micronutrients. Micronutrients. They are needed by the body. They are needed by the body in smaller amounts. They are needed by the body in smaller amounts and form the lesser part of our diet. Form the lesser part of our diet. Vitamins and minerals. Vitamins and minerals. Now we are going to talk about all these nutrients one by one. First, we are talking about carbohydrates. Can you tell me what are the sources of carbohydrates? Rice, okay. Food का example बताओ. Ghee has very minimal carbohydrate. It's mainly fat. Potato. Bread. All the grains basically. All the things which are sweet. Fruits, honey, everything that has carbohydrates. And if you look at them chemically, they are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and the technical term which we use is organic. Okay, we don't have to go to the chemistry of things here, formulas, structures, any of that, but just a basic idea. Organic is the term which we are using for anything which has carbon. The carbon is the central entity in a particular compound, so that is organic. The main role which they are going to be playing is producing energy. Carbohydrates are the main energy producing foods of our nutrients. Okay, one more example, we've got burger. See, burger is a complex food, no? There's so many things in a burger. So the bun of the burger is predominantly carbohydrate. Now tikki will depend if it is a meat tikki or if it is a aloo tikki. If it's aloo tikki, then it's carbohydrate. If it's meat, then it's protein, right? And then the vegetables, accordingly, you have to test. Okay. It has both carbohydrates and fats. It can have fats if it has cheese in it. So that can be the fat component of a burger. Okay, please write one line about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, they are naturally occurring, they are naturally occurring organic compounds, naturally occurring organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, naturally occurring organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, which are present in our food, which are present in our food and can be broken down and can be broken down to release energy. Can be broken down to release energy. Now we are going to see what are the different types of carbohydrates which are present. And for that, just a little idea about the structure here. So carbohydrates are cyclic in nature. Their structure is such, we call it cyclic, that means it's joined at all ends. This is the basic structure of carbohydrate. Of course, the shape can be different. The shape represents the number of carbon atoms. Now, there is a possibility that carbohydrates can be present in this singular form or different carbohydrate units. They can join and form long chains. When these chains are formed or when the different units connect, the bonds formed in between them, they are called glycosidic bonds. Okay. Now, when our body has to use this carbohydrate, there are different foods with different kinds of carbohydrates. किसी में 1 यूनिट वाला हो सकता है, किसी में ये 3 यूनिट्स वाला हो सकता है, किसी में 30 यूनिट्स वाला भी हो सकता है carbohydrate. Our body prefers to use carbohydrates in the single simplified form. So agar suppose we are eating this carbohydrate with 3 units, what your body will do is it will break down these bonds and it will use them as individual units. This particular process is what you understand by digestion. Digestion or breakdown. Now, digestion and breakdown means that this is the most simplified form. This is ready to use. So, if you eat a carbohydrate with a single unit, it will be easily consumed. The more the number of units, the body will have to work to break down all these glycosidic bonds, and that becomes a more complex process. Now, we are going to see different types of carbohydrates. We'll see examples in each case also, and then we'll come back and connect it to this idea. Okay, so the topic is going to be types of carbohydrates. First category here is called monosaccharides. Saccharide is the term we are using for carbohydrates. Saccharide we will use for different types of carbohydrates. So we have monosaccharide, we have oligosaccharide, and we have another category, polysaccharide. Now the variation here is in the number of those cyclic units. What is the number of cyclic units in each case? That is different everywhere. Mono, if you understand the word mono, it means one. So one single unit. Oligosaccharide is 2 to 10 units. And polysaccharide is more than 10 units. Every time one unit joins to another, चाहे glycosidic चाहे oligosaccharide में है, चाहे polysaccharide में है, the bond formed is going to be a glycosidic bond. And out of these, which will be the easiest for the body to use? Monosaccharide. One single unit can be used directly. And which will be most difficult? Polysaccharide. The more the number of units, the more complex will be the process of breaking it down for use. So we use a term simple carbohydrate for mono and oligosaccharides, and we call polysaccharides as complex carbohydrates. Because until 10 units also, it's still easier for the body, right? But polysaccharides with more than 10 units, they can be very elaborate structures, long branch chain structures. So they are complex carbohydrates. We'll write about all these three and then we'll see examples in each category. Please write the first term, monosaccharides. Okay, someone has asked, can carbohydrate be referred to as carbs? Carbs is not technically correct word. It is more of a commonly used short form. So exam में मत लिखना, call जो मर्जी कर लो आप. Monosaccharides are the simplest form. Monosaccharides are the simplest form of carbohydrates. Which cannot be broken down. Which cannot be broken down further, as they are made up of, which cannot be broken down further as they are made up of one single unit. As they are made up of one single unit. Now let's see examples. First is glucose. Have you heard about glucose? Yes, glucon D. When is glucon D given? Sports day. Okay. When you need instant energy, right? You're going on run for a race. So glucose is the main source of energy. And we will study later on also how we use glucose to produce energy. So glucon D is glucose only. So with glucose, please write it is the main energy source of the body. It is the main energy source of the body. Second example is fructose. Fructose is the fruit sugar. Fructose is the carbohydrate present in fruits, which gives them sweetness. And fructose is present in many other things also, but it was first identified from fruits, so hence its name fructose. Like honey has a very high proportion of fructose. Then you have galactose. For galactose, you can write it is a component of milk sugar. It is a component of milk sugar. We will see what is milk sugar in a while. Then you will get what is galactose doing. Please write oligosaccharides after this. Oligosaccharides. They are formed when 2 to 10 units. They are formed when 2 to 10 units of carbohydrates 2 to 10 units of carbohydrates join together by glycosidic bonds. Now let's see examples here. First example is sucrose. Sucrose is the common table sugar. The sugar which you use normally, that is sucrose. And this is made up of glucose joined to fructose. So glucose plus fructose is sucrose. Second example is lactose. Have you heard about lactose? Where is it found? Milk. So lactose, for this you can write it is the milk sugar. It is the carbohydrate of milk sugar. And this is glucose plus galactose. That is why when we wrote about galactose, we wrote it is a component of milk sugar. Milk sugar है lactose, उसका एक part है monosaccharide galactose. And milk sugar lactose is an oligosaccharide. Third example is maltose. Maltose is now a combination of glucose with another molecule of glucose, and this is present in all malt based syrups. Malt syrups are those which you find from the grains. Okay, you find from the grains like corn syrup, barley syrup, then you have maple syrup. Maple syrup is what you get with pancakes. If you know about pancakes, you would know about maple syrup. So pancakes is a very common American breakfast. With that, there is a brown, sticky, sweet liquid which is served. If you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe this is something which you can go and try. Okay. So that maple syrup is predominantly maltose. Maltose is an oligosaccharide which is glucose and glucose. Last category, last type of carbohydrate is the polysaccharide. Please write polysaccharide. Polysaccharide. It is a complex carbohydrate. It is a complex carbohydrate which is made up of more than 10 units joined by glycosidic bonds. Examples, let's see here. We have 3 examples. Starch, cellulose, and glycogen. All these 3 things, their constituent unit is glucose. They are all made up of glucose. Of course, the number of glucose, the way glucose is arranged, that whole thing can be different. But these 3 examples are polysaccharides of glucose. We'll see what each of these does. First, we'll talk about cellulose. Cellulose is present, you can write, it is present only in plants. Cellulose is present only in plants. And it makes the cell wall of plants. It makes the cell wall of plants. See, all the plants, they have a cell wall which is present, and all their cell wall is made up of cellulose, which is a polysaccharide. Now, let's see what is the story with starch and glycogen. See, we said that glucose is the main source of energy. Now, all organisms, they are going to be using glucose to produce energy. But sometimes what happens is, this glucose is extra. If this is extra, I mean extra after the body has produced energy, still some glucose is left. So what the body does is, it's very smart and it stores this for future. That maybe in future, if there is a deficiency of carbohydrates, there's a deficiency of glucose, then the stored glucose can be used. But this storage form happens differently in animals and in plants. Both of them will do the storage of glucose, but different forms. Glycogen is going to be present in animal cells, and in plant cells you will have starch. So for starch you can write, starch is the storage product. Starch is the storage product of glucose in plants. And then for glycogen, glycogen is the storage product of glucose. Glycogen is the storage product of glucose in animals. So this is starch, cellulose and glycogen. Now this is all that we needed to know about carbohydrates. We need to know that carbohydrates are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. They are present in cyclic structures and they can be present in different forms. There are different types of carbohydrates. The type of carbohydrate is based on how many units are joined together. So if there is one single unit, one cyclic structure, we call it monosaccharide. If there are 2 to 10 units joined together by a chain, if that is the structure of a carbohydrate, it is oligosaccharide. And if the number is more than 10, we say now it has become very complex, larger structure, it is going to be called a polysaccharide. Every time one unit joins to another, then it is going to be joined by a glycosidic bond. This is all that you need to know about carbohydrates. मैम वाइन में कार्बोहाइड्रेट होता है? Yes, most wines are carbohydrate based only. Like it's going to be made from potato or grapes or something like that. So they are mainly carbohydrate based only. What is the meaning of table here? Okay, I think I just elaborated, so that should make sense. What are examples? Okay. So is this okay? Can we go to the next nutrient? Okay. So the next nutrient which we are going to be talking about is proteins. Can you tell me the sources of proteins? Pulses, okay. Egg, meat, seeds, okay. Milk, nuts, they can all be sources of proteins. Now, in terms of composition here, the variation comes in presence of nitrogen. Nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. This is the composition of proteins. They will always have nitrogen. Sometimes some proteins can have sulfur also, but not all proteins. For all proteins, the standard composition is nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And the smallest, simplest unit of a protein is called amino acid. Like the smallest unit in a carbohydrate is monosaccharide. Okay, that's the smallest unit. यहाँ पे smallest unit है amino acid. And these amino acids can be joined together. They will form chains through peptide bonds. Please write one line about proteins. Proteins are a class of nitrogenous organic compounds containing carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Nitrogenous organic compounds containing carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes sulfur. They are made up of amino acids. Joined by peptide bonds. Now we are going to see what are the different types of proteins. We have two types of proteins, and here you can see the variation is in their shape. Can you see the difference in shapes? Yes. So you have one protein which is called globular protein. Here it is made up of chains of amino acid, but the chains are present in a spherical pattern in the form of a circular pattern like a globe. This is shaped, so it's called globular protein. The second possibility is that the amino acids can be arranged in the form of long chains. Okay, these long chain structures, they are like fibers. So this kind of a protein is called fibrous protein. Based on their shape, based on how the structure is there, the two kinds of proteins are there. What happens for these proteins is, because of the variation in their shape, they also end up playing different roles in the body. Their roles, their functions also become very different because of the arrangement of amino acids. So if I have to write types of proteins, the fibrous proteins which are there I'm saying that the arrangement of amino acid is in chain. So we'll be using the word linear. These are the proteins which make up the structure of different parts of your body, like hair, skin, nails, all of that is made up of the fibrous proteins. So we say they are structural proteins, and you have globular proteins. You can just simply write it like this. Okay. Linear arrangement, spherical arrangement, structural proteins, functional proteins. The globular proteins, what they do is, they end up doing all the different functions in the body. I'll tell you examples in both these categories, then this idea is going to be more clear. Okay. So the fibrous proteins, where the amino acids are arranged in linear pattern and they're forming structures of different parts of the body. Let's see their examples. Examples now will be, you have, please write, keep writing all this like this. Myosin protein present in the muscles. Your muscles are made up of a fibrous protein called myosin. Then you have collagen in the skin. Then you have keratin, which is present in the hair and nails. So the structure of these areas are made up of these respective fibrous proteins. And collagen and keratin is actually something which is used in different kinds of treatment options also. Like collagen can be used in anti-aging treatments. With age, the protein consistency, the elasticity of the skin, that changes. There can be fine lines, there can be wrinkles, things like that. So what people can do is, they can go to a dermatologist and get collagen inserted in their skin. So when this collagen protein, which makes up the skin, that is inserted, that consistency, those fine lines and wrinkles and that elasticity can be restored. Keratin treatment is even more common. Keratin is now being done at all the salons also, because the hair, the nature of the hair is made up of keratin. Some chemical formulation of keratin thus can be used here. Fibrous protein, if you think about it, it can be present in many other animals also. Like think of things like wool. Okay, wool is a fibrous protein. In fact, wool specifically, because it's hair of those animals, it's keratin only. Okay, silk is also a fibrous protein. For other animals or birds, think of claws of birds, horns of animals. All these things are made up of fibrous proteins. Okay. For globular proteins, here the amino acids are in a spherical arrangement, spherical sphere-like form, and they do different functions in the body. अब इसके examples देखते हैं what kind of functions these proteins can do. Some of these proteins, they can act as hormones. So you would have heard about insulin. Yes, you know about insulin. Insulin is a protein. It is a hormone which is actually made up of a protein, and to be specific, globular protein. Okay. But I mentioned here some. So just remember, some means not all hormones will be proteins. Some hormones can be proteins. Then you can have proteins present in the blood plasma proteins. For example, albumin. So there is a protein albumin in the blood. We will study blood also later on. And this protein is also globular protein. Albumin is supposed to maintain the blood pressure. It helps to maintain the consistency, the pressure of the blood. That is its function. Third is enzymes. Now this we will need to understand a little bit more what exactly is an enzyme. Suppose there is a chemical reaction taking place anywhere in nature. So there is A, it changes, the products formed are B and C. To help this reaction, a catalyst might be involved. A catalyst is something which is associated with a reaction, but it is not exactly participating in the reaction. A, B या C में से कुछ भी catalyst नहीं है. Catalyst is something else, the fourth thing here. I'll give you a specific example from the living system. Living systems also have some such catalysts, and they are called biocatalysts or enzymes. We have just now studied about lactose. Okay, so suppose somebody is drinking milk, so he's getting lactose, the milk sugar. Now this lactose, for your body to be able to use it, it has to be broken down. So when it will break down, what will we get? You will get glucose and galactose. Now for this reaction to comfortably take place in the body, there is going to be an enzyme which will be involved. And the name of the enzyme is lactase enzyme. To break down lactose, we need a lactase enzyme. This enzyme's role is to help in this reaction. You can write one line also about enzymes. Enzymes are biocatalysts. Enzymes are biocatalysts which help in different reactions taking place in the body. which help in different reactions taking place in the body. And then you can write this example also, lactose breaking down into glucose and galactose in the presence of lactase enzyme. Okay, this is a very important concept. You know about how there are people who cannot consume dairy products, people who are lactose intolerant, right? You understand that idea? So if somebody is lactose intolerant, that means ये जो lactase enzyme है, this is deficient. This is less, this is not working properly. So if this enzyme is not there, not working properly, the person can have the inability to digest milk or milk products. So in that case, such a person will have to depend on some alternative form of dairy like almond milk, oat milk or coconut milk. Or now there are some options which actually give you animal based milk but without lactose. Lactose free milk is also there, or maybe avoid dairy altogether. Like there is this situation in many countries. Lactose intolerance is a very common problem in some populations. Like in Southeast Asia, this is a very common problem. Lactose intolerance, a very high incidence of this situation is there. Like more than 35%, close to 40 or so percentage of their population is lactose intolerant. And because of that, what you'll observe there is that their food, their cuisine, it doesn't include a lot of dairy products, because as most people cannot process it, so even if they're using some form of milk, it'll probably be soy milk or coconut milk or something like that, because dairy consumption is or lactose intolerance is there in a very large population there. Okay, so the idea here is you need this enzyme to break down lactose, otherwise consumption of milk products will be challenging. Okay, this is what enzymes will do. And all the enzymes which we have, they are all going to be globular proteins. So for proteins, the idea is this. Proteins are made up of amino acid. The difference is in how the amino acid is going to be arranged. The arrangement here is could either be linear or spherical, सीधी line में या फिर ball के shape में. Depending on this difference in arrangement, their functions also become different. Fibrous proteins form structure of different parts of the body. Globular proteins do the different functions. And we've seen examples in each of these. Okay. How bonds are different, glycosidic and peptide bonds. See, you don't really need to go into the chemical structure of bonds or how linkages are there. But one very basic difference between a glycosidic bond and a peptide bond is going to be presence of nitrogen. Okay. पेप्टाइड बॉन्ड में नाइट्रोजन होगा एक तरफ तो वही कार्बन ऑक्सीजन हाइड्रोजन होगा. ग्लाइकोसिडिक बॉन्ड में दोनों जगह सेम चीजें होंगी. ठीक है, दैट्स द बेसिक पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस. इंसुलिन एक हार्मोन है बॉडी का. इंसुलिन इज अ प्रोटीन. ठीक है, हार्मोन एक फंक्शनल रोल है. ठीक है, वील स्टडी अबाउट व्हाट इज हार्मोन. पर ये इंसुलिन किस चीज से बना है? ये प्रोटीन से बना. ठीक है, तो ये एक प्रोटीन है जो हार्मोन का काम करती है. राइट? ओके, we'll take a break here, then we'll go to fats. If a person is lactose intolerant, how will he digest milk by birth? So milk digestion by birth के लिए children में, infants में, there are more enzymes. There are other enzymes also which help in that process, which we lose as we grow older. Okay, so that is done. That's not exactly, lactase is not needed for that. Okay. Now coming to fats. What are the sources of fats? Oil, butter, ghee, meat, nuts. They are all sources of fats. Now, fats is a very important nutrient and a very widely discussed nutrient also, because of the fact that there are a lot of ideas and concepts and health related implications associated with fats. So we're going to talk a little bit more about fats here. If we look at their composition, this is also carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, but they have a very important physical property, which is that they are insoluble in water. You might be aware of the fact that oil and water, they do not mix. Why oil and water do not mix? The idea to that is that there is this fat insolubility. Fat does not dissolve in water. That's its identifying point. And then it can be present in different forms. In our body, we can have fats in different forms, and one of the major forms of that is called triglycerides. This triglycerides has two components. One is a fatty acid, second is called a glycerol. And this structure, which makes up fats, it is very, very fixed in its number of units. There is going to be one glycerol and there are going to be 3 fatty acids. There can be no variation in the number of units here. This is a fixed arrangement, and the bond in this case is called an ester bond. So we'll write a few lines about fats, then we'll talk further. Fats are macronutrients. Fats are macronutrients made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which are insoluble in water. Which are insoluble in water. Triglycerides are the major form. Triglycerides are the major form in which fats are stored in the body. They are made up of 3 units of fatty acids, 3 units of fatty acid, and 1 unit of glycerol. 3 units of fatty acid and 1 unit of glycerol, joined by an ester bond. Joined by an ester bond. So we are now going to talk about what are the different types of fats. So for that, you can see here the different types of fats are unsaturated or good fats. Then you have saturated fats and trans fats. All the wonderful things on the planet, they come in the category of trans fats. Now, how we are distinguishing these different fats, what is the criteria is, glycerol का composition same रहता है. It is the fatty acid which will change. So the type of fat is basically the type of fatty acid. Okay. So we are going to talk about this classification. You can give the heading types of fatty acids. And there's no need for specific dictation kind of thing here. So you can just keep writing this. We have saturated fats, unsaturated, or which that diagram had said the good fats. We are going to study that also. What is good about fats and what is bad about them. And your trans fatty acids. First, we are going to talk about saturated and unsaturated. What is the basis of this? Between different carbons in the structure of fatty acids, there are two possibilities. Either there could be a carbon-carbon single bond or there can be a carbon-carbon double bond. Nature में there are a lot of different compounds जहाँ पे triple bond भी होता है. Fatty acids में नहीं होता है. Fatty acids में दो ही variation है, या single bond होगा या double bond होगा. And that's the determining factor for these first two groups. Saturated fats are those with no double bond. That means all single bonds. And unsaturated are those which can have double bonds. Which have double bonds. Can नहीं, which definitely have double bonds. ये deciding factor between saturated and unsaturated is their presence of double bond. अगर double bond है unsaturated, double bond नहीं है saturated. What we observe is that there is some commonality in their physical properties also. Of course, physical properties में variation हो सकता है या exception हो सकता है, but most commonly what we observe is that saturated fats are mostly solid, slightly solid forms at room temperature. And unsaturated fats are mostly liquid at room temperature. The other point again in which there can be an exception, but commonly what is seen is this is mostly from animal sources and this unsaturated is mostly from plant sources. Now, can you tell me an example of a fat which is saturated? That means it is coming from an animal source and is solid at room temperature. Ghee, right? Ghee, butter, cheese, cream, all of these will be saturated fats. So please write these examples. Ghee, butter, cheese, cream. And just so you remember as an example, as an exception कि plant भी हो सकता है, write one plant source of saturated fat also. It is going to be coconut oil. Coconut oil is primarily saturated fat. Now, what all will be the examples of unsaturated fats? Liquid and from plant sources. Yeah, what? Oil. Okay, yes, oil. All the kinds of oils will be there. And isme, if I have to give you an exception, then fish, seafood, or fish oil. That's a non-plant source which is unsaturated fatty acid. There is a further variation here when it comes to unsaturated fatty acids. We are going to have two types in this further. One is called mono unsaturated, and the second is poly unsaturated. Unsaturated means double bonds are definitely going to be there, but here there can be a variation in the number of double bonds. Mono, you know, mono is one. Yahan pe there is one double bond, and poly here means more than one double bond. Now there are standard abbreviations for both these terms. Monounsaturated fatty acid, MUFA, and polyunsaturated fatty acid, PUFA. If I have to give you specific examples also here, so you will have olive oil, sesame oil. Sesame oil is til ka tel. And there is this very exotic fruit which is very famous these days, avocado. Currently very expensive in India, very tasteless also. So it's usually turned into some form of dips which you can spread on your toast and eat with some seasoning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then when you go and try pancakes, you can try avocado toast also. They'll probably be available at the same place. All the nuts will come here. So almonds or almond oil, any way you can look at it. Fish oil, all the seafood, it comes in this category. मोनो अनसैचुरेटेड फैटी एसिड, इसका एब्रीविएशन है बस, पॉली अनसैचुरेटेड फैटी एसिड. Now we come to the third category, which is the trans fatty acid. Now the story of trans fatty acid is slightly complex. In nature, we have very little trans fats available. Some foods like say milk might have roughly around 2% of what should I say, trans fatty acids. But our major discussion on trans fatty acids is the trans fatty acids which we are artificially preparing in our labs, in our industries. That proportion in our diet is very high. So discussions on trans fatty acids are mainly on artificially prepared trans fatty acids. We're going to see what is or how this trans fatty acid is going to be prepared. What is the concept of a single or a double bond? Now, I don't think I can go and explain that to you. That's beyond my scope here. Why double bond is in plant sources and single bond is in animal sources? Single bond is easier to break now. So I'm sorry, but itna chemistry mein I really can't go. Okay, so trans fatty acids. Again, I'm going to talk about bonds here. So try and understand. Trans fatty acids, when we want to make in the lab, the most classical example is vanaspati ghee. Do you know about vanaspati ghee? Yes. So vanaspati ghee is going to be made up of vegetable oils. So what we do is we take vegetable oils which are unsaturated. Okay, unsaturated means it's going to have a double bond. This is taken into the industrial setup and then one bond is broken. In place of this one bond, what is done is hydrogen is added. When you do this, it is called industrial hydrogenation. And on adding this hydrogen and removing the double bond, this changes to a solid form. Okay, it changes to a solid form. So from vegetable oil, it becomes vanaspati ghee. Now the question is, why are we doing this? What's the need of this process when you already have natural products? One thing, of course, is the cost of this. If you compare the animal-based ghee and you compare vanaspati ghee, there's going to be a huge cost difference. Okay. That's why, all the sweet shops will write specifically all preparations done in Shuddh Desi ghee, right? Read that? So that Shuddh Desi ghee is the ghee which is coming from milk. This is much cheaper. That's what they want to show. That's why our sweets are expensive, because we use ghee which is expensive. The second thing is anything which needs to be processed, anything which needs to be packaged, like frying, bhujia, namkeen, biscuit, samosa, all of these things, they are better suited when they work with trans fats. Trans fats give better properties in terms of better crispiness, better texture, better flavor, and they don't go bad very easily. So they have a longer shelf life. So any product which uses trans fat, that can be stored for a longer period because this oil does not go bad very easily as compared to the natural counterparts. So because of all these properties, we use a lot of trans fats, especially when it comes to the processed food items, the packaged food items. But there is one very big challenge with trans fats, and that is that they are not very good for our health. Okay, we'll talk about that idea. Just write one line about trans fats. Trans fats are unsaturated. Trans fats are unsaturated fatty acids, unsaturated fatty acids, which can be industrially hydrogenated to change to a solid form. To change to a solid form. Examples: vanaspati ghee, fried and processed food, and certain bakery products. Yeah. Now, before we go into what are the bad things or what are the health impacts of trans fatty acids, we have to overall take a view at what are the good things fats are doing. Okay, before the bad, we'll overall in general talk about what are the functions of fats, what role the fats are playing in our body. So you can write this. Fats are a part of the cell membrane of all the cells of our body. All the cells of every organism has a cell membrane, and that cell membrane is made up of fats. Then you can have some hormones which function, which are made up of fats. Like we said, some hormones are proteins, some hormones can be fats also, like the sex hormones of the body. Then there can be vitamins based on fats. We'll study about those vitamins also. Vitamin A, D, E, and K. They are also important to act as signal molecules in the brain. So the brain sends signals to different parts of the body. Those signals are actually moving with the help of fats. So for brain function also, fats are important. Okay. And they provide insulation to the body, conserve body heat. Now, this, and there are many more things which fats do, it actually makes fats very important in our body. But there is a possibility of certain damaging things also happening because of fats. Now, in a very simplified manner, I would like to explain that to you. Suppose this is a blood vessel, this is an artery. Everything in our body, all the nutrients, hormones, everything is moving around in the blood. Blood is the main medium, main transport channel. So whatever there is in the body, that is going to be present or moving in the blood. So just like all the other nutrients, fats are also moving in the blood. Over years and years of this movement, there is a possibility that fats can start getting deposited on the walls of the blood vessels. Over a period of time, they can get attached as deposits on the walls of the blood vessels. Now, what happens in this situation is the space within the blood vessel reduces. Now, earlier, if the space was this much, now the space has been reduced significantly. But the amount of blood in the body will still remain the same. The blood volume is the same, space is less. This would mean there will be a condition of increased pressure. जगह कम है, blood उतना ही है, pressure बढ़ जाएगा. So high blood pressure can result because of this deposits. In a more severe situation, over a very long period of time, there is a possibility that the whole area becomes blocked. Pura rasta band. Now this means blood can no longer go ahead. The blood supply is cut off because of the blockage. Depending on where the blockage is, you can have some very serious consequences of this situation. Like if this blockage is supposed to the main supply line of the heart, you can have something like a heart attack. Or if this is the main supply line of the brain, you can have a brain stroke because now the brain is not getting any blood. So this deposition of fats and accumulation of fats over many years can be a very serious problem, especially because at no point there is any possibility of reversing it. Jahan pe jo jitna fat deposit ho gaya, that is going to stay like that. It cannot be removed. You need some very serious alterations which need to be done in cases like this. जैसे कि अगर इस तरह का situation है, so what they do is they put in a device here which is called the stent. stent का काम है, what it will do is it will just try and push this wide open. जो चिपका हुआ है वो चिपका हुआ है, you can't do anything with this, but this will just push this more toward the side, press it and open the vessel a little bit. इस case में no possibility of a stent, but what can be done is an alternative channel can be produced. यहाँ से what you call a bypass channel or over the blockage. So what will happen is blood can now, instead of going there, blood will go here and the flow can be restored. So this situation can become very complicated if more deposits of fats are there. And relating it with our different types of fats, which we have been talking about, in this, the artificially prepared trans fats, they have the highest tendency of going and getting deposited. That's the big health complication of trans fats. They don't do any of these good functions. All they do is they go into the body and they stick to one of the blood vessels. So they damage the health of your heart, they damage the health of your blood vessels. That is why globally there is recognition of this idea that they are bad for our health and they need to be eliminated from our diet. WHO is talking about it. There are 100+ countries who have come together to promise that we are going to eliminate trans fatty acids from our diet. And very recently, a few countries have successfully done that also. In India, currently, the situation is this, that we are not close to eliminating it, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to limit it under 2% in our food products. And one mandatory clause is, so we have in India this organization FSSAI, Food and Safety Standards of India, Standards Authority of India. They have made it compulsory that all food products must mention how much trans fat is there. So you pick up a pack of biscuit or bread or anything, you will find they have written how much trans fat is there. By weight, by percentage, all that data is there. This currently is mandatory and we wish to go towards a goal where we can eliminate trans fats completely from our diet. Why? Because they are intrinsically bad, they have no good function, they damage our health. If we put this comparison to other kinds of fats, so from the other kinds of fats, what we observe is that saturated fats can also be bad fats. Saturated fats ke case mein the proportion is very important. They can do some good functions also, but when taken in excess, they can also be bad. Of course, their potential is not as much as trans fats, but they can be bad fats. The other two fats, your MUFA and PUFA, they are mostly doing the good functions, almost little or no potential of getting deposited. So they are the good fats of the body, the unsaturated fats. PUFA being the best one. Now you can understand this by things you already know. Like it is always suggested that you should not consume processed food or what you call junk food. One of the very important factors in that is presence of trans fats. Saturated fats also, it is always suggested that you should not overindulge in them. They should be taken moderately, like cheese, cream, butter, ghee, right? Zyada nahi khana chahiye. The idea is again to do with this process. And the good fats, they are the fats which are always suggested that you must include in your diet, like nuts and seeds. They are the healthier things which you should eat. PUFA is present in fish, and fish is considered to be a very healthy food because of that. And in communities which are fish eating also, it's considered one of the healthiest diets of the world, like places like Japan, primarily fish eating countries. So their diets are healthier, they face less of these heart related, blood pressure related diseases because of the fact of the use of polyunsaturated fatty acids. ठीक है. By eating salt increases blood pressure. Okay, see, salt का mechanism different है. We are going to study minerals. In that we will talk about salt and how salt is related to blood pressure. Salt and blood pressure का relationship है. Salt helps us hold more water in the body. So if there is more salt, there will be more water. More water means more blood volume, and more blood volume means more pressure of the blood. So जिनको blood pressure है उनको बोलते हैं नमक खाना कम करो. Less salt, less water, less volume of the blood. This is a different concept, nothing to do with this. Okay. So this trans fats and processed food, such things you'll get to read a lot in your current affairs to keep following what is happening. And this is one UPSC previous year prelims question. So read this question and see if you can find out the answer. People online should also be sending their answers. A, B, C or D. बताइए. C. Okay. A company marketing food products advertises that its items do not contain trans fats. What does this campaign signify to the customers? So if there's a product in which it is written no trans fats, what does the company want to tell its customer? What is it supposed to signify? Which of these statements given above are correct? So we're looking for the correct statement out of these three. Food products are not made out of hydrogenated oils. Is this statement correct? Yes. Trans fats are hydrogenated oils. They are made by hydrogenation process. So if there are no trans fats, the customer will understand कि hydrogenated oils नहीं है. So 1 is correct. Now if we want 1 in our answer, B has to go. B cannot be the answer. Then food products are not made out of animal fats or oils. See, the information which you have here is not sufficient to conclude the second statement. ये सही हो सकता है, but we don't have enough information to say this because it just says कि this is not present. What is present, that is not explained here. So ये option, this you cannot select. So 2 has to go. Now between A and C, the last option will decide. Oils used are not likely to damage the cardiovascular health of the consumer. Cardio means heart. Vascular means blood vessels. So the health of your heart and blood vessels, that will not likely be damaged. Okay. If trans fats are present in a food item, we can conclude that very confidently that it is likely to damage the health, because that's the main job they do in our body. They go get deposited, they do some kind of damage to our cardiovascular health. So if they are not present, they are not likely to damage the health of the cardiovascular system. So this statement will be correct. Answer is C, 1 and 3 only. Is this fine? Any confusion in this, in any idea of the fats, anywhere in the macronutrients? Okay. So if this is done, then we can move to our micronutrients. Micronutrients, those which are needed in lesser amount, vitamins and minerals. This part will be more. G. What is the difference between omega 3 and 6? Acha. So between different types of fatty acids, there is a category which you say is essential fatty acids. Out of the fatty acids, there are a few fatty acids which are essential. When I use the word essential, it is those fatty acids which your body cannot produce. Your body can produce a lot of fatty acids, but a few fatty acids it cannot produce. They become essential in the sense, now it is very important for us to include them in our diet. वो इसीलिए essential है, बॉडी में नहीं बन रहे हैं, बाहर से खाना जरूरी है. And the names of, specific names of those fatty acids are omega 3 and omega 6. These are the two fatty acids which are essential, which are not produced in our body, so they have to be consumed in our diet. And they are both polyunsaturated fatty acids. So inclusion of polyunsaturated fatty acid, or why this is the best form of the fat is क्योंकि इससे आपको essential fatty acids भी मिल जाएंगे. ठीक है. Seafood, nuts again will be important for getting your omega 3 and omega 6. ठीक है. When it comes to the micronutrients, the part is more factual, less concepts there. So we'll be talking about different vitamins, different minerals, and we will be seeing what are their sources and the deficiency diseases. Lot of technical terms, lot of names of diseases, names of vitamins you'll have to learn here. Very fact based. Is it healthy to take those fish oil tablets as they have omega fatty acids? See, again, you can supplement anything which you are not getting from your diet. But evaluation of your diet is important. अगर आप बहुत सारी fish ही खा रहे हो, so maybe you don't need it. But if you feel you have a deficiency of polyunsaturated fatty acids or anything for that matter, then taking a supplement is always a good option. ठीक है? Okay. Yes. So first we'll talk about vitamins. Vitamins needed in very small amount, but we are going to see further that how important they can be, and when they are deficient, it can cause some serious problems in our body. For vitamins further, we divide them into two categories, water soluble and fat soluble. We have just now studied that solubility of water and fat is different. Fat does not dissolve in water. So this gives us two categories of products, two categories of things. One is a category which will dissolve in water. Second will be a category which will dissolve in fat. So we have two kinds of vitamins based on that. Vitamin B and C dissolve in water, and vitamin A, D, E and K, their structure is like fats, they dissolve in fats. How the body processes them is also going to be different. The water soluble vitamins will easily dissolve in the blood. They can easily be removed by the urine. So your body needs to keep the levels of these vitamins appropriate by getting them from the diet. as such, most of these vitamins our body cannot make. So we are very dependent on our diet to get the vitamins. Because plants make a lot of these vitamins, then animals who feed on these plants, they can be so good sources of vitamins, but our body does not make it. और water soluble पानी में dissolve होके निकलते रहते हैं body से. They are lost easily because of their water solubility. So we have to continuously keep restoring the levels of water soluble vitamins. The fat soluble, on the other hand, they stay in the body for longer periods of time. They are going to go and get stored wherever there is storage of fats, and they are not that easy for the body to remove. So they can stay for a longer period of time. They don't need to be regularly taken. Their levels are well maintained in the body under normal conditions. Okay, let's write this much, then we'll go to types of vitamins. Give the heading vitamins. Vitamins are micronutrients. Vitamins are micronutrients needed in small quantities for the proper functioning of an organism. For the proper functioning of an organism. Water soluble vitamins. Water soluble vitamins. Vitamin B and C. Water soluble vitamins, vitamins B and C, can dissolve in water, and need to be regularly replenished. Replenished, restored. Fat soluble vitamins are stored with the fats. Fat soluble vitamins are stored with the fats and do not need to be regularly replenished. Do not need to be regularly replenished. Okay, now we are going to see the different types of vitamins. We have their technical names which you will need to learn, because most of the questions which UPSC has asked, and there have been a lot of questions asked on vitamins, they are mostly around the technical names. We'll talk about one or two sources. Of course, there can be many other sources also. We'll just write one or two examples to get a basic idea. First is your water soluble vitamins. And in that you can see there are many types of B vitamins. It was B and C, and B is actually made up of a lot of vitamins. So this is called B complex. So vitamin B complex and vitamin C. Please write the first one, B1 or thiamine. The name is thiamine, vitamin B1. Then we are going to write the sources. Nutritional sources, dietary sources of B1. You can write milk, milk, peanuts, peanuts, and the deficiency disease is beriberi. Please write the name of the deficiency disease. It is beriberi. And in this disease, there can be retarded growth. Physical and mental development can be slowed down, can be retarded. Second is vitamin B2 or riboflavin. Vitamin B2 or riboflavin sources can be banana, milk, banana milk, and the deficiency disease is called chillosis. Chillosis is development of cracks at the corner of the mouth. So there can be cracks at the corner of the mouth because of B2 deficiency. This whole vitamin B complex is actually associated with the whole area of the oral cavity. The lips, the gums, the tongue, all of these are very closely associated with B12. Sorry, vitamin B complex. So that's why sometimes when people have some problem in their mouth, maybe an ulcer or something, they take B complex to help that recover well. Third is B3 or niacin. Vitamin B3 or niacin sources mushrooms, meat, and the deficiency disease is called pellagra. This disease can be a very severe disease, very complex disease. It has 4Ds. 4Ds are the symptoms. It's also called the 4D disease. You have diarrhea, then dermatitis, which is associated with the skin. Then you have dementia, which is associated with the memory. And then final destination, death. Then vitamin. See, after this, B5, 6, 7, 9, these are very rarely deficient. These vitamins, they are found in a very wide variety of foods like grains, milk, very commonly consumed food products. They have these vitamins. So their deficiencies are very, very rare. But we are still going to talk about them. We're still going to see if they are deficient, what can happen. Please write B5. Pantothenic acid. Vitamin B5, pantothenic acid. Sources: soybean, eggs, and its deficiency can lead to fatigue. Fatigue means being tired. Tiredness, weakness of the body, fatigue. Then you have B6 or pyridoxine. B6 or pyridoxine, milk, grains, grains, and B6 deficiency can lead to some type of nerve damage. So some basic type of nerve damage can be experiencing some kind of tingling sensations in your fingers, in your feet, or maybe a sensation like there are pins hitting at the back. Something like that can be because of nerve damage. B complex overall is again very closely associated with the working of nervous system. So different B vitamins play different roles related to the nervous system. Then B7, biotin, vitamin B7, biotin. Sources: oranges, strawberries, and this vitamin is associated with our hair and nails. So things like hair loss or increased hair fall can happen if this is deficient. Hair loss, hair fall, hair thinning, that can all be linked to biotin. So when somebody goes with this complaint of increasing hair fall, the first supplement they'll be asked to take is biotin, B7. And as UPSC aspirants, it is going to happen to you at some point of the preparation. It is a rite of passage. If you are preparing for UPSC, you will have increased hair loss. That is a must. नहीं हो रहा है तो 6-8 महीने बाद देख लेना और पढ़ाई करना जब तक ना होना शुरू हो. ठीक है. Next you have B9, folic acid. Vitamin B9, folic acid. Dates, beetroot, So again, in normal situations, folic acid is very rarely deficient, but its demand greatly increases in pregnant women. When the embryo is developing in the body, that embryo's nervous system's development is depending on folic acid. So if folic acid is less, if B9 is less during those early stages of life of the embryo can have an impaired nervous system. So this is what you can write for deficiency. Impaired nervous system of the developing baby or the developing embryo. That is why whenever somebody is identified to be pregnant, the first supplements they are supposed to take is folic acid, especially during the initial months of pregnancy. Very important. Then you have vitamin B12, vitamin B12 or cyanocobalamin. Vitamin B12 or cyanocobalamin. Now, this is one vitamin which can be produced in your body. Okay. So, there are bacteria present in our body which do the job of reducing B12. If that is not happening properly, then you have sources like milk, meat, eggs, which have B12. So, in sources, please write it is produced. It is produced by the bacteria present in our intestine. It is produced by the bacteria present in our intestine. Other sources are meat, eggs, meat, eggs. See, this B12 is again very closely linked to our brain function. And if this is deficient, some form of mental health issues can be there. Some basic issues like anxiety and depression a lot of times are associated with deficiency of B12. And this deficiency is increasing very commonly in people, especially people who are based on plant-based diets. There are no plant-based sources of B12. तो या तो आपकी बॉडी में अच्छे से बन रहा है, but if there is any problem with the digestive process or with the kind of bacteria which are present, then dependency is on the diet. Or diet में meat, eggs, they are good sources of B12. Milk also has some proportion of B12, but we have a lot of people who are now following extreme diets which are completely plant-based. You know about the vegan diet? Yes, or anywhere where dairy is also not consumed, then there are no good sources of B12 available. So a lot of people who are vegan, they take B12 supplements specifically to manage this, which is a very growing problem these days. In terms of its very specific role, we'll talk about its role in blood formation. B12 helps in the formation of hemoglobin. Do you know about hemoglobin? Where is hemoglobin found? Red blood cells. It's found in our blood. Blood may specifically the red blood cells. So if B12 is less, so B12 helps to form hemoglobin, that would make hemoglobin deficient. और हीमोग्लोबिन डेफिशिएंसी के लिए एक स्टैंडर्ड टर्म हम यूज करते हैं विच इज अनीमिया. Heard about anemia? Anemia is a very big problem in our country. A very large number of children and women are suffering from anemia. When you come across this word anemia, we'll come across it again also. You should know anemia का मतलब less hemoglobin. इस हीमोग्लोबिन के लेस होने के बहुत सारे रीजंस हो सकते हैं. But anemia means hemoglobin is less. Now, one of the reasons for anemia being less can be B12. And if B12 is causing anemia, that anemia has a special name, pernicious anemia. So, आप deficiency of B12 में disease लिखोगे pernicious anemia. In India, we also have a dedicated scheme for anemia. It is called Anemia Mukt Bharat. So ऐसी सब चीजें करंट अफेयर्स में आपको पढ़ने को मिलेंगी. So keep a track of that. Government schemes. क्या? No. Anemia at least pernicious anemia, not like that. But yes, women, I said, are more commonly infected because of the idea of menstruation cycle. Right? Every month they are already losing a lot of blood. So the tendency of loss of blood or deficiencies is more. But मेल्स में भी हो सकती है. आजकल बहुत commonly B12 related deficiency होती है. Anemia, yes, more specifically in children where nutrition is not appropriate and in females who are losing weight, losing blood. Right? Okay. Last one is vitamin C or ascorbic acid. Vitamin C or ascorbic acid. What are the sources of vitamin C? Citrus fruits. Okay, so your orange, lemon, quinoa, all their other relatives, they are the citrus fruits which contain vitamin C. Now, during this COVID pandemic, there was a lot of emphasis on consumption of vitamin C. If you remember that, any idea why we were consuming vitamin C or supposed to consume it? It helps our immune system. Okay, it helps, improves our immune system. It increases our immunity. We are going to study immunity also. We are going to study how the immune system works. But just one additional role for vitamin C, that it boosts our immunity. Vitamin C deficiency leads to a disease called scurvy. This deficiency disease is mainly identified with bleeding gums, but it can grow on to become complex with a lot of pain all over the body, joints, muscles, bones, everything pains. And in very further advancements, there can be lowering of immunity, which can lead to death of a person. And this scurvy was actually responsible for death of a very large number of sailors in the 15th and 16th century. So this disease was first called the sailor's disease. Okay. Now you started studying modern Indian history. So you will study about in that period of 15th century, 16th century, how there is a lot of traveling happening around the world. Okay, there is a need to discover new areas. So people are taking long journeys to find new trade routes, to find new places for search of resources. Now, what was happening here was their food, their journeys are very long, right? Sometimes even more than a year or so. In years, the journeys was the duration, 2 saal, 3 saal, like that also it was there. And they were mainly consuming the macronutrients. Like they would maybe have some bread, some meat, some oil also maybe, but no fresh produce was available to them. Because of that, they had deficiency of vitamin C. They developed scurvy. Even now, if you see, all the pirates, seen any pirate movies, animations, cartoons, anything, pirate always has very bad teeth. ठीक है, ये ऑब्जर्व करना अभी नेक्स्ट टाइम से. Why that is so is because he's on the sea, and if he's on the sea, that means उसको fresh produce nahi milega. So vitamin C deficiency is very common, and it first manifests as bleeding of gums. So that's what's happening to the pirates, scurvy. And what happened is during that time period, I'm talking about 15th and 16th century, a very large number of sailors died. Of course, there is no actual count which is available, but they say that the number is very high. Even more higher than the number of people who died in the American Civil War. So this was a very severe situation. And it was then, that's how vitamin C was first discovered. It was identified that this is happening because of the deficiency of a vitamin, which is vitamin C, which can simply be corrected by adding vitamin C in the diet in some formulation. So when that was done, then scurvy could be avoided. Okay. Okay. So we are going to end here. We are going to study fat soluble vitamins next time. Do we have another class this week? Tomorrow. Okay, so we'll do it tomorrow. I want to tell you one NCERT chapter which you can add here. So in your class 6th, there is chapter number 1 on food. It does not have the kind of information which you have studied, but some basic correlation you will find. How you're supposed to read your NCERT is, it is going to be very simple. You will not take more than half an hour. Please put in this effort. Read the NCERT, जो extra मिल रहा है उसको notes में add करो, so that you never have to go back to that NCERT chapter again. Look at the back exercises. Don't make me scream. I have a very bad throat. Wait. Give me 2 minutes. I was 7 minutes late. So you owe me 7 minutes. Okay. So read the back exercise also. No NCERT chapter should be considered complete without going through the back exercise. That will give you an idea if you followed everything, and then that chapter is done. In our next class, which like you told me is tomorrow, that we are going to complete vitamins and minerals first, and then we'll go to the cell structure. We have no assignment question for today. We are only going to be giving you self-test prelims questions, so practice them. And if you have any history ka pending assignment question, maybe this is your chance to write that. Second chance to write that. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.